Hello everyone and welcome to another segment of Doors Update News. This one is going to be very interesting as it's going to be a clash between theory crafting and speculation about future content coming to Doors, truly being a video that contains a little bit of everything for everyone. You see, I think I may have found a connection which not a lot of people have discovered, one that implies something pretty crazy about everyone's favorite blind entity figure, and it all relates back to their meat. Yes, that's right, these unassuming piles of figures meat actually reveal what I think is a brand new entity that is coming to the game, one which may be added in one of the future updates planned to be released. So with all of that being said, let's begin. Alright, so if you've encountered figure before within the game, it's likely you've come across their meat. Essentially, in any place figure is presently in, has been or will be in, except the library for some reason, these strange piles of flesh appear on the ground. Now, given how closely related these meat piles are to figure, as well as how they look strikingly similar to the tissue and muscle on figure's own body, it is pretty safe to assume that they are both made up of the same stuff. This means that these flesh piles are figure in a way, at least made up of him. Now, one of the biggest questions about these meat piles is how they necessarily came to be. After all, they couldn't have been produced by figure directly through shedding or something, given how they sometimes appear in areas the entity has never been in, as well as how sometimes they appear larger than anything the entity could physically produce, such as the meat piles seen in the lobby. Unfortunately, there is yet to be an answer to this question, but thankfully that's not what we are solving in this video. What we are aiming for is much more interesting. Okay, I want you to really take a close look at figure. I mean, really figure out, pun intended, what makes them tick. If you couldn't find it, let me spell it out for you. Figure is simply a homunculus or amalgamation solely made up of flesh and bone. They literally are just a mix of those two components which somehow came to life. Now, the logistics of that aren't important, but what is important is what it means for the meat piles mentioned earlier. If figure, an alive and thriving creature, is solely made up of flesh and bone, and huge wads of this stuff are present all throughout the entirety of the game, what is preventing the creation of another like him? What if figure isn't the only one of his kind? What if another homunculus is formed from the meat that is lying on the ground? Well, I believe that this is far from just a silly idea, and the second figure has been staring us in the face the whole time. You see, a while back we received a leak for an upcoming entity known only as Abraham Lincoln. Yes, that's their actual name. Now, I've made a video talking about this creature before, but they are extremely important for this video. Abraham Lincoln physically is a tall, lanky humanoid featuring multiple holes in their body, some exposing their bones, as well as sharp claws for hands and feet. Unfortunately, we only received the meshes and something else I'll touch up on a little later for Abraham, so this is all we have to go off of as of now. However, this model is all we need to discover something huge, albeit this discovery can only be viewed through the lens of figure's meat piles. I want you to really observe Abraham's model. Do you notice anything familiar? Here, let's compare Mr. Lincoln here to figure. Both are tall humanoid creatures with deformities and exposed bone. In fact, if you use your imagination, both figure and Abraham seem to be cut from the same cloth. So, because of these connections, is it possible that Abraham is of the same species as figure? Like a brother of some sort? No, that's impossible. It can't be. There is no way. It can't be. It cannot be. It can't be! My dear viewers, what you are looking at on the screen right now is a reimagination of Abraham created by a user known as the Cat. This version of the entity was specifically designed to be based on figure, and as you can see, it works extremely well. The red color of the flesh matches perfectly with the color of the bones and claws, better than any other pairs of colors for these types of body parts. The holes being places where light is emitted also fits very well, as it is similar to how figure's mouth also produces light. It also looks really well with Abraham's official running animation, which was the other leaked asset that I mentioned earlier. So, given how Abraham's anatomy is extremely similar to figure's, paired with how well figure's color and texture schemes look on the entity, as well as how both entities coexisting as members of the same species is theoretically possible based on the meat piles as well as figure themselves, I think it's at least possible that Abraham is made up of the same materials as figure, making them brothers in a way. Now, as stated in the intro, this is an update news video. So, if Abraham is revealed to be figure's lost relative, what does it mean for the future of the game? Well, for one, it means that we now have a rough sense of what Abraham's full model truly looks like, which is something we were questioning, and it is possible that this new entity could be used as a device to convey Figure's lore. If you recall, the developers did essentially confirm that Figure will be receiving a larger role in Floor 3. Okay, technically they didn't confirm it, but they chose not to give a clear answer, and that is just a fancy way of saying it's confirmed. This could be similar to how Seek's role was expanded in Floor 2, and what's interesting is that with the expansion, we got a ton of new lore from the entity. So, if Figure is expanding in Floor 3, is it possible that Abraham, their theorized relative, would be introduced alongside them, given how both are made up of the same meat? This expansion could also finally give us hints towards what exactly the meat pals are, as well as how they correlate to Figure, as those are some questions which have long been unanswered. This also means that Abraham could be a boss entity, believe it or not. You see, given this creature's immense stature, I always doubted that they would just be a normal entity, as their size seemed more in line with Figure's, which may I remind you would make sense if both were cut from the same cloth. So if Abraham does become a boss and they are essentially Figure's brother, it's possible both would fight alongside each other in Floor 3, which is kinda crazy to think about. Now, I did mention that Abraham did have an official running animation, and that means the entity obviously will be able to run towards you. This doesn't necessarily point to a specific function, but it does exist, meaning that at some point you'll be able to trigger the entity and it will run at you, similar to how Figure functions when you anger it. So, to summarize, I believe that the leaked Abraham Lincoln entity is potentially made of the same components as Figure, making the two brothers in a way. This would not only make sense logically, as what's stopping more of the meat found around the game from manifesting into another creature, but it would also explain as well as fit Abraham's current design. This could also mean both entities will fight alongside each other as bosses in Floor 3, given how the developer said Figure's role would be expanding. Yeah, I know this theory may seem like a stretch, but I find it all fits very nicely together, so I guess I'll roll with it for now. So, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, and with all of that being said, thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.